This is an Irreverent podcast. Check out irreverent.fm for shows from all our friends. Hi everyone, and welcome to Exvangelical. I'm your host, Blake Chastain. This week I'm working with a slightly different release schedule due to some off-air scheduling and responsibilities. And this episode here is more of a, well, my wife called it a blurb, and I can't think of a better term than that. And the next episode will air within the next couple of days, likely Thursday. But this blurb, or blip, or whatever you want to call it, and schedule change affords the opportunity for me to do something I wanted to do for a while, which is to explicitly ask to hear from you, the listeners. I actually want to hear from y'all. I want to know, how are you doing? How are you coping with an increasingly polarized social media landscape? What sort of self-care or spiritual practices are you using? I also want to hear how you're working through relationships of any kind, where political, social, and theological differences and disagreements have created a rift in the time leading up to and since the election. What are some of the examples in your life of ways you've struggled to reconcile with others, let alone reality itself? These are open questions for me, and I don't have a great sense for what might be the best way forward, or even if there is such a thing as the best way forward. But just to give you a little insight, there are several reasons why I want to collect these stories. First, I'd love to do so in order to share them in a compilation as part of a future episode. I think we can all benefit from the wisdom of the crowd and hearing a diverse set of voices. The X community is much more than just me and my guests. It's all of you. Second, the Episcopal Lectionary is absolutely killing it with apropos scripture for the times. I'm recording this the week of February 5th, 2017, and Sunday's Old Testament reading was Isaiah 58, verses 1 through 12, and I'm actually going to read to you the first 9 verses. That's not something I tend to do on this show, but it's so appropriate, I feel, that it's worth sharing here. So here we go. Shout out, do not hold back. Lift up your voice like a trumpet, announce to my people their rebellion, to the house of Jacob their sins. Yet day after day they seek me and delight to know my ways, as if they were a nation that practiced righteousness and did not forsake the ordinance of their God. They ask of me righteous judgments. They delight to draw near to God. Why do we fast but you do not see? Why humble ourselves but you do not notice? Look, you serve your own interest on your fast day and oppress all your workers. Look, you fast only to quarrel and to fight and to strike with a wicked fist. Such fasting as you do today will not make your voice heard on high. Is such the fast that I choose a day to humble oneself? Is it to bow down the head like a bulrush and to lie in sackcloth and ashes? Will you call this a fast, a day acceptable to the Lord? Is not this the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the thongs of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and bring the homeless poor into your house, when you see the naked to cover them, and not to hide yourself from your own kin? Then your light shall break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly. Your vindicators shall go before you, the glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Then you shall call, and the Lord will answer. You shall cry for help, and he will say, Here I am. Now, again, I don't tend to do something like that on the show. I've never done anything like that before. But if that passage doesn't just completely epitomize the sorts of conflicted feelings that so many of us have right now about the world and how faith and all these sorts of different things play into it, I really don't know what else would speak more perfectly to that sentiment than that passage right there. And that lectionary passage was chosen years ago. It's wild. Finally, Felix Salmon of Fusion, the website Fusion, wrote a great essay called Impartiality or Diversity. Pick one. Here's the key quote. Today, the personal is political. Identity politics is politics. Political stances aren't just something that we choose to express when we open our mouths in a certain way. They're a way of living in the world. If I am a gay Yemeni immigrant or a black trans woman or a Muslim trans man who's a survivor of sexual assault, then to be open and unapologetic about my identity is to be a partisan in the most urgent political debates of the day. Now, I believe that. We have to understand that identity politics is politics now. It takes vulnerability and courage to reveal our identity to the world, but it's becoming increasingly necessary to do that. And I think it can be rewarding as well. And I think sharing your own perspective is the only way forward. So I encourage you to do that with me and with the audience at large. I'll be keeping this open for at least a couple of weeks. Use the hashtag EXVShare to propose and answer questions on Twitter. I also welcome responses via email at contact@exvangelicalpodcast.com or via phone. I have a Google Voice account set up to receive voicemails at 312-857-4196. Again, that's 312-857-4196. If you're comfortable having your voicemail or email shared on the show, please say or write that your message is okay to share. And of course, you can always provide feedback regarding any episode at that same email address, contact@exvangelicalpodcast.com. You can find me on Twitter at brchastain. You can also follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at exvangelicalpod. You can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/exvangelicalpod. Many thanks to the new patrons from this week, Chris and Becky. Please rate and review the show on iTunes as well, as that helps boost the show. All right, everyone, talk soon.